And so people are like, oh, I've got to go on a diet. And they're like, well, I'm never going to have pizza again or cookies or whatever your simple pleasure is, whatever that dessert or maybe it's a Chipotle burrito or whatever your simple pleasures are. And I explained to people like you just have to sacrifice for a period of time to obtain the result that you want. It's not gone forever because then once you get to a point where you have control over your eating habits and your binge eating, then you can sit there and be like, for me, like I can have one cookie and I'm satisfied. Like I don't need to eat the whole container.
Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 17, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 20th year of marriage. So, yep, I'm in the thick of it, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, provide, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend Lucas Bonzer. I learned so much during this conversation. Enjoy meeting Lucas. My friends, super pumped to be hanging out with my friend Luke. Luke, how are you today?
Doing good, man. How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So funny, we're both in the insurance game. We're at this event in Laguna Beach, I believe, sometime last year. And last year was a big year for me. I went through this physical transformation before I turned 40 years old, where, I always worked out, but I wanted to look and feel my best. When I turned 40 and I hit that goal, it was an epic journey. It was hard as it was hard. It was different than I had anticipated. I'll say, my addiction to food, although I had a good metabolism. But, whenever I see a guy who, by the pool, who is just freaking put in the work, like once you put some work in, you know what it takes. And so, I think we had golfed together and we'd been around a couple dinners or something that week. But then down at the pool, I'm like, yo, this guy is freaking jacked. And so I came over and talked to you and we just kind of shared some stories and you shared some insight. But what led you to shift into transforming your body, really?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is for me is kind of the same thing is that I kind of always worked out of, did sports as a kid, it was baseball, football, played some golf as well. And so I've kind of always worked out but it was one of those things where I never knew what, foods to eat, how much to eat. And that was obviously was going to be the biggest indicator of changing your physique is comes down to the food. Everybody, you see people
Yeah.
now, the New Year's resolution, they go to the gym but they never change. And it's not because they're not dedicated
Hmm.
or the work they put in the gym, it's the food. And so I was kind of the same way where I wanted to, not only just, be strong and do well in the gym, but I also wanted to show what, what was underneath the fluff basically. And that's where,
Yeah.
wanting to have that show and go, not only, be strong in the gym, but also look good. So kind of be that hybrid athlete of strong like a power lifter, but look like a bodybuilder. And so I wanted to
Mm.
meet those two worlds. And so that's what really wanted to kind of lead me into that path of, obtaining a better physique. And that's what came down to, like you said, is the food and, not just sitting there, kind of like a weekend warrior type of deal. So that's the biggest thing that changed for me was coming down to understanding the food and how much to eat, tracking macros, creating a meal plan, and obtaining the physique that I wanted. Because nobody wants to be fat. Nobody wakes up in the
Yeah.
morning and say, "Man, I wish to be fatter today." Like it doesn't work that. Everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to, maybe don't want to have a six pack, but most people really do. They'll say, "Oh, I don't want a six pack," or I don't want to be chiseled, but they kind of really do. They're just saying that as, a reflection and a pushback for reasons not to do it, not to have it. But it's, changing your
Yeah.
physique is not an easy thing.
No. No. So tell me this, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but what was your kind of like weight or body fat percentage when you decided, hey, I want to change my nutrition, and then what did it change to?
Yeah, so when I initially started in 2020, um, I'm not quite sure what the body fat percentage is because I never really cared about that number specifically. It's more about how the clothes fit
Hmm.
and how you look in the mirror when you see yourself. So if I
Yeah.
had to guess, I mean,
I like that.
I probably had to be somewhere in the maybe 20%,
Yeah.
body fat. I mean, I wasn't a super fat guy, but from the beer drinking on the weekends, and obviously not tracking what food you're eating, that's going to lead to body fat. So I was probably weighing, I think I was about 209, 210 in regards
Hmm.
to my body weight. And then when I cut down and learned how to eat and macros and incorporate things in together, I dropped down to 167. So I
Dang.
so I dropped over 40 pounds
Yeah,
within
that's a
100.
lot.
Yeah, and that was within 100 days, and that was just based off of food and training. There was no cardio involved. It was just being dedicated. Not drinking is the biggest thing because you have those liquid calories from the beer and the alcohol. So
Hmm.
dropping that and incorporating with
So
being
did
a
you cut
coach.
drinking out? Have you cut drinking out altogether?
Not altogether. I never really. I wouldn't
Okay.
consider myself an alcoholic. I was just a weekend warrior,
Yeah.
basically, I like to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So get off work on Friday, close up shop at the agency, start having drinks Saturday, Sunday, and then I'd get right back at on Monday. And I never drink during the week. So it's just more of a weekend thing. And now I
Hmm.
rarely drink. Like if I do, it's like maybe at an event and I have one or two drinks. And it's not where
Yeah.
anything where it's like I can't remember the last time I was hungover. So like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at least 2019 is like or 20 early 2020. So it's been pretty much over 4 years since I've been like on a bender, hungover type of deal. So like if I do drink, it's a couple here and there, but I would never really had an issue of like alcoholism, we'll call it.
Yeah, and honestly, dude, I like that answer better. I think it's great. It's great when somebody comes on and they're like, "Yeah, dude, I quit drinking forever." And if it's a problem for you, then yes, please stop drinking forever.
Yeah.
But I also like the yes, I'm going to do this in moderation because I want, for even for myself, like, I'm going to have a cocktail every once in a while. I'm going to, share beer with my dad or my brother or whoever. And so I think sometimes it almost has a little less hold on you because I'll tell you, I grew up in the church and drinking was bad, and I drank a couple times in high school, and then I didn't drink for all of my 20s, and
Oh,
it was
geez.
almost like it did more damage to me than it didn't because I kind of just became judgmental around it. So I started drinking at age 32,
Okay.
and it doesn't have a hold on me. Like I could literally take it or leave it. And for me, that's healthier than going, I'm never ever going to do this. But to each his own, right? You got to know yourself because I mean, dude, booze can cause a lot of freaking issues, a lot.
It, it, it can.
But yeah,
And,
I
and
like the answer.
And it goes the same thing with food. And so people are like, "Oh, I've got to go on a
Yeah,
diet," and
yeah.
they're like, "Well, I'm never gonna have pizza again, or cookies, or whatever
Right,
your
right,
your
right.
simple pleasure is. Whatever that dessert, or maybe a Chipotle burrito, or whatever your simple pleasures are." And I explained to people like, you just have to sacrifice for a period of time to obtain the result that you want. It's not gone forever
Right.
because then once you get to a point where you have control over your eating habits and your binge eating, then you
Yes.
can sit there and be
Mhm.
like, for me, like I can have one cookie and I'm satisfied. Like I don't need to eat the whole container of cookies. And it goes the same thing with drinking. I can have a couple of drinks and I can
Yeah.
stop. So it's a
Yeah.
mindset, it's a discipline. So it's with alcohol and food because I think food is more bigger of a drug than alcohol and drugs itself. Because if you
Mhm.
look and you go to a
Mm.
grocery store, look at how much shit and chemicals are in food nowadays. It's
Yeah.
it's it's
It's
disgusting,
crazy.
it's affecting the kids. Child obesity is massive. I take my kids to the park, and man, there's like little kids that are like pushing 200 pounds. It's like holy shit, the kid
It's
can't fit down the
crazy.
fucking slide,
Yeah.
And so I think
Yeah.
food is a bigger problem in some ways
Mm.
than alcohol and drugs. And it's just not something that's brought up because for whatever reason, it's a touchy subject for people and, talking about people that are, overweight and obese nowadays.
Yeah, what's crazy though is I was just looking on some of the whatever government health website, and just seeing the incline of obesity in the last 20 years is wild in America. Like
Yeah.
how fat we are getting. And we don't even really realize that if we're hitting 30% body fat, that we are coming into like we're becoming obese. We have some medical and health issues that we're going to have. And the problem is, like, if you're a dude and you're like, yeah, who gives a shit? I work really hard and it doesn't bother me. That's fine. But do you want your kid to look like you when he's 40? Probably not. Right. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, have a little bit bigger why, which is your spouse, if you're married, and your kids, because you're setting that tone. I mean, you're the one choosing what you're buying to put in in your house for food, etc. So yeah, it's pretty important.
It is. It's a huge deal, especially me having two kids, and I have young kids that are 7 and 8, and I make their breakfasts. When I have them, I make their breakfast every morning, and their lunches for school and dinner. And I mean, I weigh out my kids' food. I basically kind of track their
Wow.
macros as well
Yeah.
too, because and I want them. It's not about like, oh my God, you weigh your kids' food, but I want them to see what dad's doing, because kids won't
Right.
listen to their parents, but they're going to watch, they're going to listen, they're
Yeah.
going to
They're going to do
see,
what you
hey,
do.
hey dad, why are you weighing out the food? Or hey dad, why are you going to the gym today? Or hey, why are their kids watch, and they're sponges. And just because they may not maybe paying attention, but they are. And so that's the biggest thing, is as a
Yes.
father, is leading by example and showing them instead of telling them. It's easier that way, and
Yeah.
kids will see it in repetition.
So I don't miss this, and then I'm going to go to the beginning of my typical questions. But um, right now, my family is going in. So I've got an 11-year-old to a 17-year-old, five kiddos, and we had our December of junky food, and we're moving into like healthy food for the next, hopefully setting some new habits around it. And
Yeah.
funny enough is like I know that as the dad, I do have a bit more control of the breakfast and lunch, and so I'm going to be kind of meal prepping and preparing those for my kids. And then
Okay.
my wife is more responsible, or she just chooses to be, for dinner. But question for you is, you have a 7 and 8 year old, is what are some good breakfasts and or lunches that you are making for your kiddos, that you think other dads could be like, oh, cool, I could step into, preparing this or making this available for my kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's with kids, it's tough because there's really no like good, because especially like mornings for school, it's like, okay, what's quick and easy? Typically, bowl of cereal.
Hmm.
Kids gonna hammer down and get out the door. So that's a typical go-to for most parents. But for
Yeah.
me, I'm up early, so I try and to, depending on the day, but typically my go-to is I'm gonna make them a protein shake. So it's
Hmm.
basically non-flavored protein powder. So there's no like, and it's the ingredients are clean too from the protein powder that I get, and basically just adding in fruit, some orange juice, applesauce, blend it up, and get the kids to at
Hmm.
least get some protein and carbohydrates in the morning. So sometimes that's an easy go-to, and then also pretty basic, just scrambled eggs and bacon.
Yeah.
And so maybe some fruit with that too, and some orange juice, and making sure, waking up the kids at, they don't have to be at school until 8, but I wake them up at 6:30. So it gives them time instead of just rushing out the door. So I get them up
Yes.
early
Yeah.
to allow them to kind of get their brains going. They're not feeling rushed to then get to school, that anxiety, and allow them to eat their breakfast and give them time versus waking them up at 7:30. Hey, get dressed, get a bowl of cereal, and let's get out the door within 30 minutes. So
Yeah.
breakfasts are
So
very simple
so
and
good.
basic. So, I mean, that's where
Hmm.
it's like, well, I don't have time in the morning to make them breakfast. You do. Get your ass up early enough, make the
Yep.
scrambled eggs, just two scrambled eggs, some fruit, a couple pieces of bacon, depending on what they're, obviously, anybody that has food restrictions or allergies. But at least for my kids, they
Right.
don't have any of that. So I can make them eggs and bacon, some fruit and orange juice. And it's just then getting that meal down and then getting them out the door for breakfast. Weekends can be a little bit easier. I can make, pancakes and waffles, and got a little bit more time to make, a little bit easier foods. But if you want to do pancakes, like I do the Kodiak pancakes,
Hmm.
it's got protein. I'll throw in an egg, some goat's milk to get extra protein into there, because I know some kids can be picky about milk and certain things. So I try to get as much protein in my kids as possible versus kids don't need as much carbohydrates. So I try to really increase
Right.
their proteins and fats. And so that's where, in regards to breakfast foods, where I kind of keep it relatively simple. It doesn't need to be complicated. And then lunches, turkey sandwiches, or I'll
Yeah.
do your traditional peanut butter and jelly. Get their fats. I use Dave's protein bread and try to stay away from the white breads, the enriched flours
Hmm.
and stuff. So those are basically in regards to like their protein base for their lunch is going to be, and I weigh it out. I try to at least get 4 ounces of sliced
Hmm.
sandwich meat, and then peanut butter for peanut butter and jelly, and then I'll make sure to throw in some fruit. I'll throw in pretzels, and maybe for like some sort of basic snack, and then they have water for their drink. So you really
Yeah.
just don't have to.
Dude,
Biggest thing
it's
is you
so
just don't have to
awesome.
overcomplicate things.
Right. Yeah, I think one of my greatest joys is when I can make my kid breakfast and or send them to school with a healthy lunch, cuz they'll be running out the door and just grab something crappy, which I guess if they grab something crappy that's on me for having it in the house. But working on those things, but yeah, I think as a dad, if you're getting yourself up early, you're getting yourself set up for the day, you have an opportunity there to make your kid breakfast. And if they're going to sit at the counter or the table and eat, to sit down and either wait and eat with them or just sit and talk with them, because eating is like this traditional thing that we would usually stop and break bread together and kick it and connect. And now
Yep.
it's come to, like, especially in America, we're so fast about our eating, or we do it in front of the TV or something, and we're missing these moments of pausing and connecting. And so I think as a dad, if you can look at that morning window as a moment to connect with your kid, and put something healthy in their body, teaching them a habit. It's like, dude, that's not difficult and anybody can do it.
Exactly, and it's like you don't have to make anything fancy or special. Just my biggest thing is I'm a big protein driver, so whatever you can make your
Yeah.
children and drive in and getting enough protein into their diets, because it's going to satiate them more and keep them more full. So then they're not going to want to have to grab snacks. So if you can
Yeah.
then teach their body and get them used to that protein, into their body, it's going to be less likely than for to want to then reach for the junk food, which then the junk food digests even quicker. It's not going to satiate them. So just that's what then creates the overeating and that type of habit. So that's kind of been my thing, to make sure and understanding the food and how to provide better quality food for the kids, not only just for myself, but then teaching them those good habits and starting off with eating multiple meals throughout the day too. It's most people are standing your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I try to make sure that my
Hmm.
kids have multiple meals throughout the day as well too, to help with their metabolism and their development, because I feel like for me, having multiple meals is like putting wood into the fire. Is like your metabolism. The more
Hmm.
wood, you're going to keep that fire burning, and you're going to teach your body how to utilize those calories versus storing it as fat. And so, and teaching your
Yeah.
kids and their body at an early age is going to set them up for failure, or set them up for success and not failure, and longevity for
Yeah.
their future.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Love it. All right. I'm sure more of this will come up, but let's jump into a couple things. How old do you find yourself today?
How old do I feel? Oh man, I honestly, it's weird when I like, because I'm going to be turning 36, and I
Nice.
like in my mind and like my body don't even feel anywhere near that. I like some days, like I would say 21 almost, in regards to like how I operate and how I feel. I mean, I have a better physique and strength than I did in my 20s. So by
And then how
changing
about
that,
your energy when you wake up?
yeah, no issues. I'm not groggy in the morning. Once I set an alarm, but I
Ready to go.
typically I'll typically wake up before it. It's kind of just
Mm.
there just in case. But I try and just allow my body to wake up. So if I wake up and it's 3 a.m., my body's had enough sleep. I'm ready to go for the day. And obviously, if I sleep until my alarm, let's say it's 5 o'clock, then the alarm will wake me up at 5. But I try and get that 6 to 7. If I can get 8, I'm lucky. but at least 6 to 7 hours of
Hmm.
sleep. And, with the type of food that I eat, and just, trying to just be able to keep up with the kids, you just got to, keep it as a priority. So I definitely feel a lot younger than 36, which is great. That's the key, is that, you get to a
Heck
certain
yeah.
point, you want to be able to reverse that
Yeah.
aging process. You don't want to, be 36 and feel like you're fucking 50, you know?
Right. Well, that's the thing is, how do we make 50 feel, right? It's the decisions you and I are going to make today, tomorrow, the next day that are going to make 50 feel like we're awesome. And that's what I'm going into, this decade of just looking and feeling my best and continuing it on so that I'm 65, 70, still surfing with my grandkids at that point. Or being able to roll around on a skateboard, or just get up and down off the floor and play with the baby. And those are the things that are really critical to us having functional fitness and nutrition at this age, right? Because yeah, we could probably still drink and do whatever. I'm 40, it hurts a little bit more, but uh, we have the ability to set ourselves up for success. And it comes down to fatherhood, right? Like, do it for your kids, do it for your grandkids. um yeah, man. I mean, I even sometimes will visualize this idea of, imagine you're in a suit walking your daughter down the aisle for her wedding. Like, do you want to be that fat ass guy who's just like, like not psyched, you know? Or do you want to just be like an alpha representative of this family that is like a leader in all aspects of life? And like, you as a dad 100% have control of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like, where if you have a daughter, what do you picture your daughter's husband to emulate? Because
Oh,
obviously, when you
he's
have a
huge. Yeah,
daughter,
he's
you know, you see, like, when I looked back at my life and when I was in my 20s and what I was doing back then, I wouldn't want my daughter to be with somebody that was like me. Like,
hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's what you have to look and say, okay, I have to lead by example and do things, because I want to show my daughter what a man should be and what they should do, and their integrity and who they are as a person, how they treat themselves, because your physique is your resume to the world, basically.
Mm.
So when you say,
Wow. Wow.
when you see somebody at the pool and you see a fat person, you can already tell their habits, what food are they eating, what they're doing, and
Right.
that shows
Right.
basically part of who they are, is their resume. Where all of a sudden you see a guy at the pool that has, that's, got a six pack and in shape, you can tell a lot about that person based off their physique, because your physique is your resume to the world. It shows you what they're doing behind the scenes.
Dude, I love that. Is your resume to the world. Something I've been, talking about is, there's kind of these six pillars I'd say I live by: faith, family, finance, freedom, fun, right? And I could post a really great Instagram reel for any one of those five, right? Like,
Yeah.
you would have no idea if I'm full of shit or not. But the sixth one, which I would normally say before, but is fitness. Fitness is the only one that you have to be authentic. You cannot be a liar in. Like, if I tell you right now, dude, family's so important to me, and I've got a picture of my family and blah blah blah, I could be a total dick to my wife and I could be an asshole to my kids. But if I tell
Yep.
you, dude, fitness is really important to me, you are going to know in 2 seconds whether that's true or not. And so I believe, like, as men pursue that, right? If they're leveling up their life as they pursue that, the other areas will level up too, but it forces you to be authentic and not full of crap.
Well, yeah, because a physique it's so important, because not only just for your own health. Obviously, this is about, ultimate longevity, but it can't something about building a better body and a physique. It can't be given to you. Money can be given to you. Wealth can be given to you.
Mm.
Certain things like that
You
can
could
be
get
given.
lucky with those things.
You can get lucky,
Yes. Oh,
but
okay, I dig it. Yeah.
building physique, you have to earn it. You have to be patient.
Yeah, that's
It's not an
good.
Amazon package. It's not
Yeah.
going to be delivered instantly. You have to sacrifice. You have to be patient. You have to be, disciplined. So when you see somebody that has a physique, a lot of people may, project on that and be like, oh, they're probably taking steroids, or they're, cheating or doing something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we
they could
pull
still
people
be
down
doing those
because we're
things.
not willing to do the work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the thing is, but that person still had to eat the food. They maybe still had to do the cardio. They still had to dedicate themselves to create that type of body and create that lifestyle. And like you said,
Yeah.
when you earn that physique and you see what you're capable of, and that makes that changes, it's a trickle down effect because if you're feeling better and confident, it's going to get better in business, in your work life. You're probably going to start making more money.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, you're now going to be more attracted to your spouse. So your spouse and your relationship is probably going to get better, going to have more intimacy. Your kids, obviously, you're going to have maybe more patience because you had patience with your physique. So now you're going to have
Yeah.
patience with your kids. You're not going to snap as quick. You're not going to be as angry because of that. So the fitness is a good starting pillar for fathers because it's going to be a trickle down effect to the rest of your life, all areas of your life. So,
Yeah.
at first, when you start, like at least for me, when I first started to wanting to get a better physique, it started with wanting a six pack. That was the goal.
Hmm.
But towards the end of it, that wasn't the goal. The goal changed because now it's like, okay, I have the six pack, but now it's improving other areas of my life and
Yeah.
I'm enjoying
Yeah.
the process now because it's more of the process than the result. And you can't basically take away a man's process than you can versus, because it's going to succeed for the result. So that's the biggest thing is enjoying that process versus just focusing on a result. Because if you're focused just on a result, you may fail. But if you're just enjoying the process, the result's going to happen either way for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big aha I just had was, you know, in our culture, we're so entitled, right? I mean, we're just born for the most part. Okay. For the most part, we're born into a pretty wealthy, we have food. We're not worried about shelter and food for the most part.
Correct.
And so our kids and ourselves are pretty used to like, oh, I want X, order it on Amazon. It'll be here in 2 days. So we've trained ourselves to be entitled and not patient. And so we're not willing to put in hard work unless it's easy. And you see that a lot in like, 20-year-olds to 30-year-olds right now. Like they just don't want to put effort, and really a lot of people. But if you were to pursue the process of this, you're going to become more patient, less entitled, less selfish. I mean, it's going to just impact so many of these character traits that we all say we have or say we want, but it's really going to challenge you with those. And I hadn't really put that together. And yeah, I mean, dude, here's a great example. I have been on this path for a couple years now, and I just decided to do the Gary Brecka 3-day water fast. And so I just finished it last night.
Okay.
And yesterday I was talking to my daughter and her friend, and they were out by the pool, and I came out and talked to them for a minute. And my daughter's like, "Whoa, you're not mad right now." She expected me to be mad, because I was hungry, and I was like,
Yeah.
"No, I mean I'm hungry, but I'm good." And it was a shock to my kids. And then I saw it show up in a couple other areas. My wife was late for something yesterday, and it would typically piss me off if we didn't leave on time. And I was like, dude, it's all good. Like, I get it. Stuff happens. And so I think when you start to get control of those areas, then you can do the same in others. So, yeah, big aha for me right now.
Yeah. It's a huge trickle down effect. Once you get yourself in that life and that lifestyle and you understand the process, it's basically a game changer for you in all areas of life. Like and it can
Yeah.
never be taken away from you once you start down that path. You basically really take control of your life and how you want to um, do things the way you want to do them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's killer. All right, a couple fatherhood questions. When did you embrace fatherhood? So you have a 7 and an 8 year old. You've been a dad. You were about what, 28, 29, had your first kiddo, right? Kind of in that area. Uh, when did you embrace fatherhood? Was it the moment you heard you're going to be a dad? Or was it when your baby was delivered? Or was it a year later when you started to have like a different connection with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say really embraced it and kind of was like, okay, here we go. Was probably that first night in the hospital where it kind of
Mm,
like, obviously the pregnancy and the whole process. You're just like, okay, that's great, but there's really for dads, there's really not a whole lot to do. You know, we're kind of just kicking back, waiting for, basically the game to start once delivery hits.
Yeah.
So I think it
Yeah.
was that first night after delivery, and all of a sudden it's like, man, now here's, for me, it was my daughter. So now it's like, bam, here's your daughter.
Mm.
And then I think then when it was like, okay, you guys can leave tomorrow, I'm like, you're going to allow me to leave with this thing? Like, what the hell am I
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
do? And
Yeah.
so I think that was, a start of embracing the fatherhood. And then I think it was then when
Mm.
we got home and that first day and night alone with her, and
Mm-hmm.
starting the whole process of changing a diaper and the feeding and that whole just the whole process itself, I think
Yeah.
was kind of really kicked in once we got home. And it's like, okay, thankfully when they're just newborns, there's not a whole lot going on. They eat, sleep, and shit,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
So, but it was still the fact of like, okay, now you're responsible for this little girl, for the rest of your
Mm-hmm.
life. And so
Yes.
I think that was the biggest trigger. The first, it was initial shock. It's like, okay, first night, all of a sudden you're asleep. You're not used to waking up to a crying baby, and you're like, okay, now I got to figure out, swaddling and this and that. And then I think then it
Yeah.
really, really sunk in once we got home, and taking off from there was really the biggest embracement and understanding of like, holy shit, like here we go, man.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see how this turns out.
So something that I love that you said, which I don't know really, I don't even know if anyone said it before. But you said now you are responsible, right? You're talking to yourself like now I'm responsible for this little girl for the rest of her life. And not that you need to have the answer to this, but at what point, if most men are created to have that natural feeling, right? Like I think we're pretty much created that when that baby's born, we have that natural feeling. But if it were true and we stuck with it, the world would look different, right? Because how many kids don't have a dad who's engaged in their life? And I wonder, and what do you think? Uh, when and why does a man disconnect from that responsibility, right? At what point does he slowly disconnect from I'm responsible for this person, and not to control their life, but to walk and guide and lead and teach whatever the role of the father is? What do you think? Why do they walk from that role responsibility?
So you're basically asking why some men leave and not take on the responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah, like you had this innate, and I'm not saying you gotta have the answer, but it's just kind of like for us to rap about this. You had this innate feeling of this girl has been placed in my care to take care of, to watch over, to protect. And at some point, I mean, it has to be true that most men have that initial feeling, and then at some point it kind of like goes away because they're not connected to their daughter, they're not connected to their son, they're not taking responsibility. And it's saddening because that's what our world is missing, right? Families falling apart, and a lot of it's because men are not leading in their homes.
I think it's fear based. I think
Mm,
I think it's a lot of had to do with fear, because I think
yeah,
fear is a big driving factor for most people in life in general. That's why
yeah,
most people stay in their 9 to 5 dead end jobs, because they're afraid
yeah.
to
What are
maybe
we afraid of?
failure.
Mm,
If you walk away from the child and you never have to experience that fear of failure, if your daughter or your
mm,
son turns out, let's say a shitty person, a shitty individual. Because at least for
right.
me, I obviously want to raise my kids not only to be successful in life and be healthy, but I want them to be good people. So when I'm not around, when I take them to school or they have a sleepover, I don't want to hear that your kid is acting up or you're getting in trouble and not treating people with respect, and adults and the
Yeah,
other children. So I think for men, I think it's the fear of failure, because if you leave that situation, you don't have to worry about if you're a good father or not. Because most parents, when
oh,
you
yeah.
lay you lay in bed at night. So I'm sure you've had this situation where maybe there was a time where you you snapped on your kid and you yelled
Yep,
at them
there's
or
been a
whatever it may
few.
be, and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
put them to bed and you're laying there at night and you do a recap and you're like, man, I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I didn't do that. And you have that regret feeling because you want to be a good parent. But unfortunately, being a parent doesn't mean being their friend. You need to be a leader. You need to be a parent, not a friend. And that's a fine line for some parents to follow. And that could create that sense of failure and fear of wanting to be their friend and not have your kid hate you. So I think that's where, I can't speak for them, but if I had to put myself in that situation, I think it has to do with uh, basically being driven by fear of failure.
Yeah. Yeah, so you bring up something really good. It's so funny, this damn word, good. Okay, so you said, "Am I?" A lot of men are asking, "Am I a good father or not?" What's
Yeah.
another word we could replace with "good"? Because I think the word "good" is causing us a lot. Good and happy are two freaking words that are causing some issues. And I would say the question isn't, "Am I a good or bad dad?" Right? Because then what am I judging that based on? I'm judging that based on, comparing to someone else. I'm just looking at a way that I maybe did something I didn't want to do today. Like I said it this way or that way. But what's another word? Not am I a good dad, but what would you replace that with that is less? It's good and bad. It's what's
Competent.
Yeah. Yeah, like
You know,
competent or intentional. Competent, I like that word because it means that I have to go learn some things, right? So if I
yeah,
feel like I wasn't competent in the way I spoke to my kid today, maybe I need to go hit up Lucas and say, "Hey, yo, this happened. Can you give me some feedback?" Whereas if I, instead of using the word competent, I use the word good, I wouldn't want to tell Lucas about how I spoke to my kid today because then I'd feel like a failure, right? I feel like
or
I messed up. I did it wrong. But if I'm like, "Am I a competent dad?" Well, not in this area, not in how do I talk to my daughter about sex or her period or whatever, like whatever. So if I look at it in that sense, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get the skill to do that. Just if I wanted to get in the gym or wanted to golf or wanted to do whatever, I'm like, okay, let me go figure this out. If we had that same view of fatherhood, I mean, hopefully that's why people are listening to this podcast right now. They're working on leveling up those skills. Any other
yeah.
thoughts on that before I ask my next question?
Well, and I think you hit it on the head. Is as a father and as a man, I think we're bred and initially brought here to learn skills and to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like for me, if I don't know something, I'm the type of person where I'll go out and find the answer to it, or I'll teach myself. Like for example, the garbage disposal goes out. Okay. I'm the type of person where I'm going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to buy a garbage disposal, and I'm going to replace it myself. Am I a plumber? No. But I'm going to sit there and I'm going to learn. It may take me a couple
Yeah.
hours, but I'm going to try and learn that
Yeah.
skill of changing it out versus waiting, scheduling an appointment, wait for somebody to come to the house. Like I'm going to learn that skill. I'm going to create that competence. So now I've done it once. So if it goes out again, I
Mm,
know what to do. So it's the same thing whereas disciplining your child, maybe your first initial thing is to hit your kid, spank them. Like, you know what? Hey, you did something wrong. I'm going to whack you across the ass. Okay. And
yeah.
some kids respond to that and some don't. Like for
Right.
example, my son, if and I would, if I've spanked my son before and he's just like, all right, dad, cool. Like that doesn't work on him. So it's learning a
Mm-hmm.
different skill of how to discipline him where it's going to create an effect where, hey, I'm trying to teach you something not to do that. And obviously sometimes, spanking your child isn't always going to work. Every kid's different. Not
Right.
saying spanking your kid is the
Right.
way to go or do it. I'm not recommending that, but it happens. But I've learned a different skill in how to discipline my son versus a different skill of how to discipline my daughter. So that's, I
Yeah.
think, where for me that word being competent and learning a different skill for and how to do things for your children of what works with your daughter, what works with your son, if it's discipline, if it's schoolwork. I know the way my son learns is different from my daughter, being able to teach
Right.
them and help them out with their schoolwork. So I think as a father and a leader, you have to be able to adapt and learn different skills. And, it's not a one size fits all as fatherhood, as you know.
Yeah, so a couple really just key things is one, you're talking about knowing your kids, and as a father, do you know your kids? Do you know their likes, their dislikes? And as a father, one of our greatest opportunities is to call out their gifts, right? When I see my son doing something one way or my daughter doing it another way, to affirm them. Oh man, when like that's incredible. Like look at what you created, look what you did. And obviously not tying that I love you because you can do that, but I see that in you and I want to call that out in you. Like as fathers, we need to call out our kids' strengths. Um, the other thing I love is one of the questions that I was going to ask, and I can still ask if you have any other opinions on this, is what's the role of the father? But one of these things that you said was learn skills and pass them on. Like, what if that was, I looked at my job is to learn skills and then pass them to my kids. Um, and
Mhm.
you said this word create that competence for whatever the thing is. And I think we're just missing that as fathers, we're creators. Like we got to create our children and then we
Yep.
get to create every day with our hands, our words, our actions. We get to create. And so I love those two words. Is there anything else you'd lean into if you were describing the role of the father? What would you describe that as?
I mean, the biggest thing role I think as a father is one, being obviously being a leader and setting the example. As men, is you got to lead from the front. You have to learn to become a leader, be the example, be out in front. And I think
Mm,
that's for me, and what my mindset and how I kind of look at it as being a father is is being able to be out on the front lines for your kid, and not show them to live you know outside the box, not be in fear, and do what you want to do, and show them too at the same time. So I would say the biggest thing for me, um, for your answer, would be being that leader, be out front.
yeah.
Don't be
Yeah.
so like just reserved, and trying to think of
Mm.
the word, but be yeah, just be more out in front.
Well,
Don't be scared.
yeah. Yeah, what I'm hearing, which I really like, is you're talking about being connected. I think a lot of times we'll say, "Oh, I'm a leader," right? Or you be a leader. But the terminology that you used, be out in front. If I'm out in front, that means I'm not alone, right? I'm not alone. You said reserved too. So I'm not just doing my life in the dark, like measuring my food at 4 a.m. when nobody knows, or, doing my, not, nobody knows I work out. Like you're out in front, you're letting your kids see your life, the wins and the fails. So you're
Yeah.
connected to them. And I think a lot of us fathers are disconnected. We kind of like have our own life and then we come and do the family stuff. And it's a missed opportunity if one of our primary roles is to learn skills and pass them on. And a great, very simple example is it's Saturday morning and you're going to fix the garbage disposal. It would be so much easier to wake up, make your coffee, go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, grab the parts, do it all yourself, get it done in 2 hours. That would be easier. But if you went and woke up your son or your daughter, you took them out, you had a coffee with them, you went and you looked for the part, you watched a YouTube video together on how to fix it. What is it going to take you 3 hours now? Like what a
Yep.
different opportunity. And that's
Exactly.
being out in
Yep.
front, right? And I love that word, be out in front, or that statement, be out in front. That means if I'm out in front, I'm looking back, I'm checking on my crew, I'm willing to fall and stumble and let them see me fall and stumble so that they are going to fall and stumble less, right? I mean, think if we're hiking on a trail and I kick a rock, I yell back, "Yo, don't kick this rock." And if I'm leading out in front and I let my family see my failures, they are going to throughout their life miss more of those rocks on the trail.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean that's the biggest thing, is and then creating obviously that for me, building my business and setting up not only myself and the family now for success, but then
Yeah.
being able to provide that future for my kids where they won't have to struggle as hard as I did. My dad was, rags to riches, and, obviously
Mm.
had to create himself, and, he laid a nice foundation for me. And so for me now, it's my step to create a better foundation for my kids and hopefully them, and it'll just keep building itself
Yeah.
and making it easier in regards to certain things that other people don't have to worry and stress about, and building those better foundations and removing the hardship and negative things that we've had to gone through, and hopefully they can avoid those to make their lives a little bit simpler. Obviously things happen, but being able to navigate through those tough waters.
Yeah. Yeah, man, so good. So with that, you brought up your dad just now, and I know you listed your dad as the greatest resource when it came to you becoming a father. Tell me a little bit about him and how he was a resource to you as during your fatherhood journey.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a great, set a great example of how to be a father. Thankfully,
Mhm.
my parents were married for almost about 40 years before my mom passed away, and
Mm.
so they're high school sweethearts. They had me and my brother, and they basically own their own cleaning business. Rural basic people from Long Beach, and so eventually my dad went to go work in sales and really developed his sales skills, and really became successful, and basically then from there showed me not only he was my baseball coach, he was my football coach, he was
Mm.
engaged with our lives. He was not just, most dads, unfortunately, they're they're there around their kids, but they're not present. There's a difference
Mhm.
between engaging with your kids than being in front of your kids and you're sitting there scrolling through Instagram. Like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with my kids.
Right.
Like, there's a
Right.
difference between being present
Yes.
and not present. And my dad was always present. Obviously things were different. We didn't have technology and all the stuff now, but he was our football coach. He was baseball coach. We would
Mhm.
eventually, when we got into golf, we would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go get that early bird tee times. So he was always there and showed me, my brother, how to be a father, how to lead, how to be, start from nothing and be successful. He obviously, for me now, him being able to teach me, about how to be a good salesperson, how to be a good business owner, how to invest, those different things that you can't learn in school. And so for me, I got to learn that from him. A lot of my skills, like we talked about, that I've learned, I didn't learn from school. You can't, those things aren't taught in
Mhm.
school. And so I
Right.
learned those of different things. Even like I used to watch my dad, like he would build us skate ramps, from scratch. He'd go to Home
Mhm.
Depot, buy the material, be able to build a skate ramp for us. Or, we would build skim boards. So he would, go buy all the stuff and he'd be able to show us and, do the woodwork and build skim boards for us. And he wasn't any sort of, he's never built it before, but he learned it, learned that skill.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing that he's been able to pass down to me and my brother, doing things yourself. Obviously, there's certain things that, you can hire people for, but at the same time that you can do around the house and fix things, and you appreciate it that just much more. So having that as an example was great for me in learning that foundation of how to be a good father. So for me, I had that great example already set the tone, versus unfortunately some kids and don't have that, and so they have to kind of learn it from scratch. So that's what really, you know I think helped me becoming a father, is because I had him as such a great resource, for fatherhood, and obviously him still being here and being able to go to him and help me out still at 35 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, that's epic, man. Beautiful. What's your dad's name?
Richard.
Richard. My dad's name's Richard as well. Love it.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's just great to honor those men who set that example. And the hope is that our sons one day would be having a conversation and say, "Yeah, my dad," and have positive things to say about the way that we showed up. Um, we have a few more minutes here. One of the things that I'd like to just ask you about briefly, because I know so many men are going through this, but you had brought up before we started recording, about your divorce back in 2019. And my question to you would be, A, is there anything you'd share with a dad that would be helpful? B, how did you show up well for your kids? And you kind of a C would be, like you transformed your life into just, taking that moment and becoming even more a better version of yourself, if you would say. So in any kind of one of those three areas, what would you share that you think would be insightful or helpful for a dude who's either in the middle of that, moving into that, or struggling in that?
Yeah, it's you know, it's tough. You know, when you've been with somebody for, 8, 9 years, and you're married. I had at the time, a 2-year old and a 3-year old, and your wife
Hmm.
comes to you one day and tells you that she doesn't love you anymore. It's a tough thing to hear. And so getting beyond that point of, you're going to go through different emotions. You're going to have your anger, your frustration, confusion, different symptoms that you're going to go through. And when she finally, when she packed up and left, I went from a full household, to then just myself. And then
Hmm.
at that same time, COVID hit, and so then there was the lockdowns. So then I was all alone, basically. And then there would be, obviously, then I have my kids 50% of the time, and then it's me and two little kids, and I'm having to run a business. And so obviously it's a lot at first, and it's trying to navigate those waters and really understand that you're capable of more than you think of. Because for me, I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm trying to run a business, I've got two little kids, things are, you can't really go anywhere or do anything. So trying to balance out that type of life, and you really got to become, for me, I just became more structured and disciplined, and taking
Mm.
it day by day. Try not to look at things as a whole or a long haul. Like, how am I going to get through this? How am I, a lot of those negative thoughts are going to make things worse. So the best thing that worked for me was keeping a positive mindset, saying, hey, this is tough right now, but I'm going to get through it. It's for
What
some
what
reason.
gave you that Yeah, I would just love to pause here and go, what gave you that? Because like that's a fork in the road where you just decided to become more structured, more disciplined, lean into this. It's a season, positive mindset, and you easily could have gone the other way and been like, "F it, I'm gonna work hard. I make good money. I don't care. I drink now more than I did before," and just like go down a path of misery. Which we don't call that misery in America, but ultimately
Yeah.
that's what it is, right? What was the trigger, the thing inside of you? What allowed you to make that choice to go down that hard path in the moment?
Yeah. So obviously at first, yeah, I was, drinking more on the weekends. I didn't have the kids. When I had the kids on the weekends, I wasn't drinking. But it came to a point where I just, kind of hit rock bottom. And I woke up one morning on a weekend where I was, on a typical weekend bender, and I just was hungover, just not feeling good. I was reflecting in isolation, basically, because I was by myself.
Mhm.
And something finally just, I was just done. I was like, I can't
Mhm.
keep doing this. I've got two little kids. I got to be better for them. It wasn't about me. It was more
Mm.
about setting the tone for my kids, because the path that I was
Yeah.
leading down to, and if I kept going that way, it was just going to get worse, and it was affecting my kids. And I didn't want that to be an issue for the kids. And I didn't want to
Mhm.
then affect their future. So that was kind of really the rock bottom, and the breaking point was how I was
Yeah.
feeling, how I was reflecting on the things that I was doing. And for me, that's where I was like, I need to get right. Not only just for myself, because I know if
Yes.
I can better myself, it's going to be better for the kids. It's going to be better for my business, and which it did. I made the right decision. Obviously, now looking back 4 years later, is that things could have gotten really bad. And I'm glad I made the
Mhm.
investment in myself by getting a coach, getting a better physique, stop, the drinking that I was doing. And from there, it was that trickle effect that got me into a better place, a better mindset, and obviously a better relationship with my kids. And it's basically, my business has doubled. So things have just
Wow.
expansionally gotten better just by improving myself as a father and getting out of
Yeah.
that negative mindset from where I was at. And
Yeah.
that's, sometimes you have to reflect on that.
Yeah, so I'd love and you kind of mentioned a couple there, but if we could narrow it down, what are 3 action steps? So if a dude feels like he's in that situation right now, what are 3 action steps that you would suggest they take?
First action is to invest in yourself, because clearly
And what
what
did
you've
that
been
look like for
doing.
you?
So for me, it was getting a coach. for
And how'd
fitness.
you choose a coach? What kind of coach did you? Yeah, you chose one for fitness. Why fitness?
Yeah, because I just felt that by getting myself healthier and
Yeah.
getting my body and my mind right and the food, I knew that that was going to be a gateway to better success for my relationships, for my business, and for myself. So that would be that first action is to invest in yourself. If it's, a coach or whatever it may be, is invest in yourself, get yourself right. And so for me, it was a fitness coach. Maybe for you, it's a just mindset if you're already in
Yeah.
great shape. But it's something that's going to help you mentally get you out of the situation you're in now. And, somebody that can, I wouldn't say like a therapist, but somebody that you can talk to and work with, and it's going to get you in a better
Hmm.
place mentally. Because once you can fix your mind and what you're doing and get disciplined, that's going to better all areas of your life. So once
Yeah.
your first action really should be admitting that you have a problem, that you're in a shitty situation.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
once you can, basically realize what you're doing and you can have, because for me, it was that look back, like seeing what
That
I've been
reflecting.
doing
Yeah.
and realizing that I have a problem in regards to how I'm living my life. So action
Right.
one is admitting that you do need to fix something, because if you don't think you have a problem and there's no issue, then obviously nothing's going to change. And
Yeah.
then two, then I would say then you getting that coach, getting that somebody to help you. If that's, for me, it was fitness and getting
Hmm.
myself right mentally and physically. And then step
Love it. And
three,
then any third action? Yeah.
third action is from there. It's just is execution. Is you
Mm.
set your plan and you
Do the
stick to
work.
it, and you
Yeah.
just you I what I did, and I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. I didn't tell anybody that I hired a coach.
Mm.
I didn't tell anybody that I stopped drinking. I just put my head in the sand and I just did it. I didn't sit there and be like
Yeah.
most people, oh, I'm, going to the gym day one. Like I just went and did it, and then all of a sudden people saw the
Yep.
result. They're like,
I love
I
that.
was completely two different people. And they're like, holy shit,
Yeah.
like what the hell did you do? And so I
Yeah.
didn't want to be the person that's just speaking in words and say, hey, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then there's no follow up, because most people are easy like,
Right.
hey, I'm going to go start this business, or, hey, I'm going to, go to the gym, or hey, I'm going to start a diet. They never stick to it. They never stick to their word.
Right.
So for me, it was
Right. Oh,
committed to
stick
it,
to your word.
dedication, and then creating that action and making that result happen, and not listen to any outside noise, anybody else saying, hey, why are you coming out drinking or this and that, whatever it may be. And just, hey, I'm focused on myself. I'm trying to do this, that, and sticking to the plan and not making excuses and making shit
Yeah.
happen.
Mm. Don't make excuses and make shit happen. Boom.
Exactly.
There it is. All right, my friend. Killer, dude. I love it. So good. Thank you for sharing your life with us. Last question for you is a legacy question. Imagine 30 years from now, you are standing in a cul-de-sac peering into your kids' homes. They're about your age now. What is it you want to see playing out in their home that just puts a tear in your eye or a big smile on your face knowing that you showed up? What do you see?
Yeah, if 30 years from now, man, I'd love to see, my kids, have kids of their own would be great. Having the grandkids, people, full, the house, and just really just happiness, seeing my kids
Yeah.
happy and, in their own homes with their own kids, and they're happy and healthy, and in a good place, because I know the world can be difficult, it can be challenging, a
Hmm.
lot of depression, and if I do what I'm supposed to do, my kids will be happy and healthy, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah. Love it. Lucas, thank you for the work that you've done, the last 4 years and more. And thank you for your willingness to come on here and talk about it so that other dads could hear, be inspired, and know what is possible. I look forward to our paths crossing again.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you having me on here, and I hope that at least if there's one dad here that I could help out and understand that if you're in a difficult position, that you're going to get through it. It's going to be tough at first, but just keep pushing, keep your head down, stay dedicated, and just focus on what's important. And the time will pass, and as everyone knows that. just take it day by day, and things will work out. I promise.
Yeah. I love that, dude. Super inspiring. And before we go, where can people find? I know you do fitness and nutrition coaching now. Where can people learn more about that?
Yeah, they can follow me for my fitness page is Show and Go Fit on Instagram. And then if you want to check me out on my personal page, it's more of the kids and family type stuff too. That's Lucas underscore Bonzer on Instagram. Also, you can find me on Facebook, Lucas Bonzer. And then any obviously business stuff, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, love it, dude. And I think it's really important. There's 1,000 fitness coaches out there, and just like Lucas shared, he found one that worked for him. Depending on who you are, where you're at in life, and what you need to be connecting on, find that person that you're going to vibe with and connect with, that can walk with you for 100 days, 6 months, a year, and step into it, because it's really hard to do on your own. Everybody can benefit from coach, mentor, and not just doing it in the dark. So Lucas, any last thoughts on that before we cut here? But I think that's can be a critical component for people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is getting a coach and getting somebody. It can cut out a lot of the noise, and instead of
Mm,
doing it on your own, there's a lot of zigzag. Where if you get with somebody like me or whoever may be that you resonate with, we can cut you into a straight
yeah,
line, get you where you need to be, in a faster route, but for more purpose driven. Is the biggest thing is investing in yourself and getting that help, asking for help. It's not a bad
yeah,
thing. It could be an ego
hmm,
thing, but try to avoid letting your ego get in the way of asking another man for help, because I've been
hmm,
there. I know the struggles. I've tried to do it on my own. It's so much easier getting somebody that is already at the destination that you want to be at, and we can help you get there
yes,
and take out a lot of that zig and zagging and BS, the red tape, and we'll be able to give you that blueprint. And as long as you follow the blueprint, you're going to be successful. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And I know as a man that can be tough. Trust me, it took me a long time sitting there dwelling on asking for help or not. And I'm glad I asked for the help. And there's nothing wrong with another asking another man for help. There's nothing,
yeah.
you know,
Ask for help. I
ego
love that.
based. I know guys,
Yeah,
even go to Home Depot. I'm like, oh, I'll find the thing myself. I don't need to ask for help. you know,
right,
so it's just
right.
it's just one of those things. If you're struggling as a dad, if it's with your kids, if it's
Mm,
with your health and fitness, reach out to me, reach out to Ned. Ask us our opinion. It may not be the answer you're looking for, but at least get a second opinion on something if you're needing that help and
yes,
guidance.
yes,
There's nothing wrong with that. I asked for my dad for help. Obviously, if there's somebody else that's a resource for you, and you're struggling with it, get the answer, find it.
yeah. Yeah, dude, so good. All right, my friend. Thank you so much. This was incredible. Appreciate the time. What an incredible conversation. I really enjoyed the discussion around how to feed our kids, how to be engaged as a dad. I think as dads, there's such an opportunity for us to build rhythms and habits inside of our home, build standards of excellence. And so much of that can be around food. I mean, I love food. I'm assuming you love food too. And it's an opportunity to connect with our kids as well around meals that are going to really fuel our bodies well and help us have a healthy lifestyle. The other thing I just so loved about this conversation was talking about the good and bad. That's been on my mind. You're probably going to hear that come up so much in my podcast right now, but am I judging myself being good or bad? And I love how, Lucas brought up the word competent. Am I a competent father? And not to feel like, oh, I'm a stupid dad or I'm an idiot, but if there's an area that I need to gain some skills in the way that I talk to my kids, interact with my kids, lead, love, and guide my kids, I have the ability as a man to go learn those skills. And a lot of times that's going to be from another dude, right? Willing to put yourself and ask. And I want you to think about, how do you feel when somebody asks you a question? If they come up and say, hey, Ned, I've really noticed that out in public, you really know how to talk to your kids well when they make a mistake. I'd feel honored. Or if I'm in the gym and somebody comes up and be like, yo, how do I use this machine? I'm honored. I don't think what an idiot. I think, whoa, I'm needed. And same goes to be true. Like we could give that to someone else if we walk up and ask a question. So there you go. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, please, please, please write a review. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. Thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That is who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.